Stanford University.
So hello everyone, welcome to lecture 4 of the CS193P Friday guest lecture sections. Today we're going to have Alex Pachikov from Evernote talking about Evernote and the freemium business model on the App Store. So without further ado.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello. Thank you for having me here. It's very nice. So I'm Alex. I'm VP of Business Development for Evernote, but originally I was actually the 3rd employee in the company, so I've had quite a few roles as I've moved through it. So I don't know how many people actually know what Evernote is, but give a brief overview of what it's all about. So Evernote is really a service. It's much more than a single application or a set of applications. It's really a service, the goal of which is to follow you around your entire life and help you remember everything. So wherever you might be, wherever you see, there should be a way that you can put it into Evernote and then know to yourself that you'll have it there forever and you'll find it whenever you actually need it. So in order to accomplish that goal, it needed to be a service. It needed to be a cloud service, I guess is the buzzword. But obviously there needs to be ways that people access it. So the most direct way is the web application. So if you go to evernote.com, you have an account, you log in, you will see all of your notes there. But web applications are nice, but really we feel that the user experience and everything just becomes more pleasant if the application is native. And so we develop native applications for almost every platform that we consider it important. We have a Mac and a PC application, and if you've ever used a desktop application compared to the web service, you kind of automatically know what the benefits are of actually having an application. It's much faster, it works offline, it can do things that the web can't necessarily offer you. Of course, the downside is that you have to have it on a computer, but that's why the hybrid model between having a web service and desktop and mobile applications really works well for us, especially for the type of data that we handle. But we also have mobile applications, and we support many phones. And at this point, it's starting to be a little bit frightening how many devices we actually support. But here today, for the most part, we'll focus on the iPhone. But I figured before I go into that, I'll give you an idea of what all this looks like. So this is our Mac application. So the Mac application, it looks like a lot of other Mac apps do. In the center, you see the thumbnails of all of the notes that you created. And the notes could be just about anything. I mean, they could be clips of web pages. They could be screenshots, just pictures that you took with your phone. They could be documents, PDFs, etc. And the thumbnail will automatically render the image of that note. So you can visually find it very easily. And you can zoom in and out of the thumbnail, scroll around, and see them. On the right, you see the actual note preview pane, sort of like the metaphor of a mail application. And then on the left, you have your notebooks and tags and attributes and all sorts of funky ways to organize everything that you need. This is our Windows application. It looks very similar, and that's deliberate. We developed a Mac application in this new iteration. We developed it first, and then we wanted to make the Windows application look like it. We basically felt that developing on a Mac was easier. It gave us nicer UI controls, nicer widgets. Everything just was kind of easier to experiment with. And once we settled down and we decided how we wanted it to look, we then re-implemented the Windows application to reflect those same metaphors. So again, same things that you saw from before are visible here as well. As I mentioned, we have a lot of mobile applications. So an Android app, Home Pre app, Windows mobile app, and of course the iPhone app. The iPhone app is the most advanced application we have. In many ways, it's more advanced than the desktop applications. Give you an example. The desktop applications synchronize all of your notes. So you have notes on the service, they synchronize to your PC. And then you go home, and then you have a Mac, so you synchronize back to the same account. So you have the same notes on both your Mac and the PC. But it's all of your notes, and they all synchronize because that's how our sync engine works. On the iPhone version, we wanted to have the sync, but we were concerned that if people have a lot of notes, we're going to fill up their entire phone with just their notes. I mean, I actually have 6 gigs of notes, and granted, my phone's 32 gigs, but that's a significant chunk, and that's maybe not something I want to put on my phone. So we created kind of an even more advanced version of the synchronization engine, which can just select the portion that you want to sync. So you will select notebooks. So notebooks is kind of a top-level differentiator of notes in Evernote. So you would select certain notebooks, and all of those notes will, just those that you selected, will synchronize to the phone. And then as you make changes to them on the PC or on the Mac, all those changes go back and forth. So you always have your latest notes available on any device. Now, for the notes which you didn't decide to sync onto your phone, you can still access them, but that will happen over the network. So if you search for something, and the result is actually in the note which is not local, it will go out to the service, fetch just that one note, cache that note, so then you have that note even if your phone loses the network connectivity. So this is just a brief look at the applications. Really, one of the things that is non-trivial about what we do, and something that we consider really impressive or sexy, is our image recognition. So it's a technology that we've developed that allows us to search through images. So you can search for printed and handwritten text today in 6 languages. And we actually go way back in our technology roots in sort of OCR and ICR technologies. The core team which did this recognition originally did the handwriting recognition for the Apple's Newton. So we sort of go way back, and have been supporting it. I mean, it was a different company back then, but those guys basically regrouped and joined the company here. So here I'm basically showing a napkin, and this is kind of our demonstration napkin. It's this napkin is sort of the invention of Evernote. So somebody came up with the idea that they wanted to have the service so you can remember everything and synchronize, and they wrote it on a napkin, and they took a picture with it, and then years later they thought, oh, what was a great idea that I had that I wrote down on this napkin? And then they searched for, they remembered their motto. They thought remember everything was what they were searching, or what they wanted to call it. So they searched for it and they found this napkin. So it's sort of this kind of abstract example of it. But so using that technology, we've basically allowed the phone itself to become an extension of your brain. It's a way to give you, for lack of a better word, to give you photographic memory. So if you see something, you see a bottle of wine, I could never remember wine or sake, and I just take a picture of that label. If I see a business card, I don't like Rolodexes or stacks of business cards, but I just take a picture of a business card and I file it away. And then one day I need it and I say, oh, I met this guy from Apple, and I just search Apple and I find all the notes which match those words. So that's our image search technology. Now, getting back to the iPhone, really kind of the first question to us was, should we develop for the iPhone? And it seems obvious now. Looking back, the iPhone has been a huge success, and developing for it is clearly a right decision. But kind of imagine us 2 years ago, exactly 2 years ago, actually. Right around this time is when Apple announced the Apps SDK. And we're sort of sitting around, and we obviously all bought the iPhone 1Gs, and we're all sitting around basically saying that, should we develop an app? Can we get away just doing a web app? Do we really need a native app? And it wasn't a trivial decision. One of the reasons it wasn't is the iPhone market share. At the time, and really even today, it is not the most popular phone in the world. I mean, it's probably not the most popular smartphone in the world. I don't have the exact numbers with me. But especially at that time, it was really single-digit percentages. But it was a slick and sexy device. Everybody liked it. Everybody wanted to work for it. But the business case of allocating resources in your company, to develop for a platform which isn't the prevailing platform when you don't have support for the more popular devices, was not a trivial decision. But we basically went for it for a few different reasons. We thought that because the device is much more application-centric, and it seemed to be much more application-centric, that there will be many more downloads of applications. People will use applications a lot more on that device. We sort of saw that in the existing market, there were applications, there were app stores, but it really wasn't moving. People were still using their phone for phone calls and email and some light web browsing, but even that, if you remember, 3 years ago, that just wasn't something that was really easy or pleasant to do. And so we basically assumed that the number of average applications per user would be much higher. We hoped that the typical usage of those applications would be much higher as well. But the real sort of reason that we did it is enthusiasm. We really wanted to do it, and there's 4 or 5 people in the company who just really wanted to do it. And doing something that you really want to do turns out to be much more pleasant. The decision to go forward and actually do do something that you're excited about, it's almost a no-brainer, as opposed to making a kind of a business logical decision that, hey, guys, we really should support it. So we went for it, and we've been extremely happy about it. I guess the reason that I'm saying all of this is not because I'm trying to convince people to develop for the iPhone now, but the same decision is now ahead of you because of the iPad. Again, 0 market share of iPad today, but we have high hopes for it, and we certainly are very enthusiastic about it. And we actually already announced that we began working and making quite a bit of progress. But you have to sort of pick your battles and decide what you want to pursue. So what we actually did, we really wanted to build a great app, a really impressive, unbelievably nice application. We looked at the apps that Apple built at the time. There was even some web apps which were really nice. And we didn't just want to build something. We decided that if we are going to do it, we're going to try to build as good of an app as we possibly can. And if you set a goal that high, then at least maybe you'll come in at a good app. But if you set your expectations that you'll develop some sort of an app, well, you're probably not going to get too far. So really kind of one of the points of my entire talk is really try to make a really good app. That is going to be the best decision and the best driver of downloads and traffic and everything that you will have. And I'll talk more about that. But the other one is hire a good designer. You'll be surprised how important that turned out to be. We were lucky enough to have a really good designer. The person designed our logos, most of our UI, and we really wanted the app experience on the iPhone to be top-notch. And we've spent a lot of time on the icon, a lot of time on the buttons. I mean, if I go back a slide, you can see each one of those icons here is quite a bit of work, quite a bit of artistic work going into it, and that has really paid off in a variety of ways. I'll show you some examples in a little bit. But the designer isn't just a designer who makes pretty pictures. The designer is also somebody who understands the experience, who knows that they're not designing it to look flashy, but to be really useful and to be pleasant all along the way. And so that really helps. So my sort of number 2 advice is, you already decided to build a great app, but now really get a good designer if you're not a good designer. And then be honest with yourself. If you're not, I'm not. And the third one is focus. You got to do something well. You got to do one thing well. If there's only one thing you do well, that is already better than 15 things that you're going to do poorly. And if you're going to spread yourself too thin, and I guess a lot of people here are sort of one-man shop, designing an application by yourself, you got to just focus. You got to find what you're going to do. You have to decide to do that, and you have to do it well. And then you have to take a step back, look at it, and decide to redo it again and do it even better, and so on. And it's a difficult process because you really come to a point you think, oh, it's great. We're a note-taking application. I mean, how much can you really ask? Take a picture, type in some text. But it really turns out to be there's so many more nuances to almost everything. And you see that in apps. You see that in other people's applications. I mean, I don't have any examples of other applications right here, but almost every application that you see on the store which is popular does at least something really, really well. And I think that is an important key. Now that you're focused, now that you've developed and now decided what you're going to do, you got to release it. And it seems silly, and I don't want to be saying things which are self-evident, but releasing something is 10 times more work than you think it is. Actually getting it out there and people using it in a state that you're not going to be embarrassed about, that last mile is unbelievably difficult. And there's so many hang-ups there where you think, oh, I'm almost there, I should just push it out. But you've made a commitment to yourself, you made a commitment to the future users that you're going to do something well. You did it, and now you really got to pull everything together and write the nice copy and get the nice screenshots on the App Store and all of the things, and really actually release it. And once you release it, then take a step back again and listen to what people are saying about it. Read the reviews, give it to your friends, see what they say, see how you can improve it, and basically rinse and repeat. You go more or less back to step 1 or maybe step 3. And you kind of keep doing it. We probably release almost once a month. Either bug fixes or new features. We take slightly longer cycle if it's going to be a big new release, maybe a couple of months. And then we spend a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 cycles of a couple of weeks of actually releasing the bug fixes and so on. And be careful when you listen to your users. Most of the advice that you will get, and that's true in your life in general, is wrong. So the key really is to figure out which advice is right. So your goal in life is basically to learn how to take good advice and ignore everything else. And users tend to want a lot of things. But they want them without considering what your goals are. They want another feature, but adding another feature is really more likely to create more problems. Creates new bugs, it confuses users, you lose your focus. But there are users who will appreciate what you do, and they will give you useful advice that you can really take and do something with. And then maybe those are the users that you want to reach out to and communicate with them. Twitter is actually a great place for something like this. We get so much advice from people on Twitter, and if we actually want to follow up, you just hit them right back. On the App Store, you don't have a kind of a two-way communication reviews, and so it's a little bit difficult to get more information out of people there. So now that you've got the app, that you've released it, it's all about promotions, or people think it's all about promotions. Everybody asks us, how do we market it? How do we get it out there? How come, we've grown to the popularity that we have? Well, it's the app. We've done a lot of things. We work really hard, but the most important thing that drives the most users to us is the app itself. We don't really we don't do marketing in a way that a large company would do it. We don't buy advertisement. We don't force it down people's throats. We see most of our users really just trying out the app. They may be looking for some productivity thing. They maybe have read some blogs or some press, and they're trying out the app, and then they're telling their friends about it. And get to that in a bit. But in terms of marketing, there are things you can do to reach out. You do want to communicate with your users. You have I guess Twitter accounts or Facebook accounts, or you want to have users sign up so you can send them email and communicate with them. So there's ways to engage your users, to keep using it, to hear their thoughts, to see how you can improve the application, and so on. But obviously the big part of marketing is the public relations, blogs, and so on. Here it's kind of interesting. So we didn't do this intentionally, and maybe this is but in a way we developed an app for bloggers. We developed an app which bloggers like, because it's an app that helps you go around the web and, I guess in the world, and capture things that you think are important, sort them out later, and then be able to turn them into some sort of a post. So bloggers and journalists tend to be kind of our number one constituency, at least the most visible constituency. And then they inevitably end up writing about Evernote because it's in front of them, they're using it all the time, especially all the kind of life hacker and productivity people. They're constantly talking about how they're so productive, and all the time, the way Evernote really comes up is that people saying that, well, I use this for, my mail, I use this for my to-dos, but then everything else I just put into Evernote, and then, I know it's in there, and I know I can find it when I need it. So, if there's sort of one concrete advice I can give you is, build an app for bloggers, and you'll get some blog coverage there. But that's not necessarily the only way to go. There's so many blogs out there, so many magazines. They all want to promote good things. They all want to discover something. They all want to say that, oh, this really cool game that nobody knows about, this really cool app has changed my life. And, you don't need to sell to them. You just sort of need to talk to them. You need to say, check out my app. Maybe it's going to be useful. Check out my game. Somebody likes it, they will write about it. Because that's really what drives them. Their audience is expecting something interesting. So they're out there seeking something interesting. And if you think you developed something, just talk to them. And you'll be surprised how far you'll get. I guess the next one is non-viral growth. So I will not talk about viral growth at all. Non-viral growth is the only type of growth that we actually truly care about, because that is kind of a true organic growth. That means that I used something and I liked it, and then I showed it to you because I thought I liked it and I wanted you to check this out. And then you liked it and you tried it and you showed it to your wife and to your friends and so on. That is kind of the natural spread of information. I guess I will talk about viral growth. So viral, in all contexts, is bad. It's not, it's never good. People think it's good because they think it makes them popular, but really it doesn't, right? It makes you popular for a period of time, like a viral video, but only really because you look stupid or something, right? That's what drives it. You don't want that for your business. You don't want that for your application. For your application, you want kind of the true growth, the real sort of grassroots community of people who are liking it, who are using it, who you're communicating with, and you grow from that. Those are the people that stay with you. Those are the people that will use your application. The other way that we've actually been pretty successful is partnerships. And we as a company are pretty open. Our API to our service is completely open. We have a whole bunch of applications that use Evernote as a storage for whatever that they do. There's applications like Pixely, for example. You send them an envelope of stuff, and they scan everything and they put that into Evernote. There's Shoebox is a similar type of application. We work with iPhi, a company that makes a little SD card, and you take a picture of something, and then you can configure that picture goes directly into Evernote. So you have a camera sitting in your meeting room, and then when you're done with all the whiteboards afterwards, you just snap a couple of photos, and those photos go into some sort of a shared, Evernote meeting account. We have partnerships with a whole bunch of different companies. I'll show a slide about that in a bit. So partnership and integrations have not only been a source of kind of features for us. And it's definitely a way that users, the way we add features to Evernote that we don't develop ourselves. So you want something within our service, we don't really have plans to do it, but there might be another company that does it, and so that brings in features. But really that has been a driver of users as well, because you partner up with these services, you do some co-promotions, you work together, you reach out to press and so on. Press loves sort of interesting, non-trivial partnerships. And then that ends up driving users and popularity and so on to you. And the last one here is Apple. Apple can really do wonders for your application. But you have to understand why they would do that. You don't really pitch them. You don't really come in and say, put my app on the front of the App Store. It's just not going to happen, unless you're Facebook. But even then, I think it wouldn't happen. But they do promote things App Store is really kind of a meritocracy. And it's the really only true meritocracy that I guess I know of. Because the kind of things which become popular because they're good. And the reason Apple will promote them is because Apple thinks they're good because that makes them look good. So the key is the key is basically to do something that makes the iPhone look even better than it already is. And that's what drives them to promote you. And we've been actually very lucky with that. Not just because of these cookies, but there's a number of things that we've appeared in. For example, our logo is in all the TV ads, not all, but most of them. The finger doesn't actually click on it, but it appears 6 or 7 times in every ad. And you'll be surprised that's actually really, really useful. The brand recognition of your icon, especially if your icon is recognizable and memorable, which goes back to the point about having a good designer. That is extremely important because people see it on TV, they sort of associate that like, well, it's been on TV, it couldn't be that bad, right? And a lot of apps appear in those ads. This is just one of the screenshots. I actually probably have about 30 in my collection. And then we were on the demo iPhones. So if you walked into an Apple store, there were stands with the iPhones, and there's a bunch of apps on there you can play with. And one day Apple called us and said, "Hey, could you make a version of your app that's demoable, that's easy to demo?" And so we did, and then we ended up in the stores. Thousands and thousands of phones. We could see, because we can see the hits on our server from these demo devices, and you can even tell, where in the world, because of the time zone distribution, of people playing with your application. And there are like 60 apps on those demo phones, so we're surprised to get tens of thousands of hits because there's just so many people in those stores just poking around. So if something like that happens, it's a lot of work because you really need to, sort of sharpen your application in such a way that it's easy just to poke around and see what it does. But, take that plunge, do it. We actually got the call about doing this on a Friday night, and then we had to do it by Monday. So that was fun. And just recently, I travel a lot. I'm a biz dev guy. I do shake a lot of hands in different parts of the world. So there's these Christmas ads, and I've been to like 4 or 5 countries in the last couple of months, and I see them in every language, almost everywhere you go. And you see them in airports, you see them at stores, you see them, and we're lucky enough to be right dead center. We don't quite know why we get so lucky. My guess is they needed something green because it's Christmassy, and we were green, so it worked out pretty well. But yeah, I have 6 or 7 of these in different languages on bus stops and on billboards and so on. It's kind of fun as you're driving through Mexico or something to see one of these things. So, but yeah, so like the point about that is you don't get these things for free. There's always a little bit of work associated with you doing it, and you likely have to do it fast. But the benefit of something like this is immense. This is my personal favorite. This was sent to us by just some guy, I guess, on the internet. He says it's outside of Dublin in Ireland. And as you can see, that thing over there is an iPhone. So yeah, so we got pretty lucky. We got pretty lucky with that one there. So kind of back to integrations. One of the ways that it's helped us, and perhaps one of the ways that we can help you, or really anybody, is to pair up with a complementary application. So if you know that you're doing a service and there's another application out there, iPhone it's an operating system. It's a platform. There's many ways applications can talk to each other. They can talk directly. In some cases, they can talk to the web service. There's a number of ways that you can work together. And it turns out to be really useful because then you don't need to lose focus. Then what your application does, it really does its best. And then somebody else does something else really well. And you pair up with them and save yourself time and then basically end up promoting both of the applications. So this screen here, this is not every, but sort of in the last 3 months, these are the 16 applications which are integrated with Evernote that I personally worked on basically with these people. And I guess if there's something, the reason I'm sort of bringing this up is that if you wanted to work with us on an integration because you thought that Evernote would be an interesting place for you to work with, we're completely open to doing so. And we're more than happy to do promotions of it. This month, actually, well, I guess those who are watching will not know what month this is, but this is February, is our partner month. It's not necessarily going to be every February, but we go out of our way to promote integrations of companies that work with us. And we have 2.5 million users at this time, and every one of these apps, some way or the other got some exposure to those users. And I don't have the exact metrics of how it benefited them, but I've anecdotal evidence from a number of these companies that it's been just great. That after they've done the integrations and we've publicized it, you saw so many more sales or downloads or usage and so on. So if somebody's interested in information on that, there's stuff on our website. There's a developer section on our website, so feel free to look into it. But it's not just only us. You can integrate with many applications. There's many services out there which are kind of built to be integrated within iPhone applications. So definitely explore that. So the App Store itself. So the App Store itself is the most important part of the iPhone experience. It's actually really, really nice. People sort of kind of give it a bad rap. You heard some bloggers and so on saying about approval processes taking too long and so forth. It's not really our experience. The approval process could take a week or two, but recently it's been much faster, and they're really useful. If you get rejected, there's a reason, and the reason is usually a bug or a problem that you didn't catch yourself, and your users would have caught it. But then they wouldn't be nice enough to write to you. They would just stop using your application. So in a way, Apple does everybody quite a great service by actually going through the application and checking if things work. People get upset about some of the more strict rules on which icons to use where. But as a user, you come to appreciate that because you always know that if you click an icon with a box and an arrow, that's going to open up a menu of options, where to send something to. You're going to click an icon that looks like a little box with a line at the top, that's a new something, new note, new email, new something. So there are reasons behind all these things, and I sort of recommend people understanding and embracing them. But look, if you look at the App Store, you really have very little information to convey to the user. I don't know the breakdown between how many people see the App Store on the phone versus in iTunes. Let's say for the sake of arguments, half and half. The only information most people see, for the most part, and that's it. I mean, they see an icon, they see your company name, they see your product name, they see your reviews, and the price. And that's what you have to work with. that's where you have to start to catch the users, to actually get them to click through. That's really the first step. A lot of people spend more time on their descriptions and screenshots, but you've already lost 90% of the people when they saw this. And you come to this and you look at the very first one and you don't know what that does. I mean, what are the chances of you actually clicking on that? So we sort of go out of our way to make it as simple as possible. I mean, we have the word note in our name, so you kind of know what we're going to do, a note taking of some sort. We have an elephant. Not everybody picks up on that. Elephants. The reason we have an elephant is because elephants have a really good memory, and Evernote's all about helping you remember things. So the icon is kind of nice. You kind of want to click on it. That thing at the top is actually an ad that Apple put together for us when they featured us. And then your reviews. Well, so your name is obviously extremely important. Try to be descriptive. Not too descriptive, but not too creative and out there, because you want to build some brand recognition, but you don't want to have it be too far out of reach. If your application name is 30 characters long, then people probably have a hard time actually even reading it. And so the reviews, your rating and reviews, that's actually kind of interesting. Basically, you're going to have between 2 and 4 stars. I rarely see anybody who has 5 stars unless they're new. And you rarely see anybody who has 1 star unless it's really, really bad. And then those apps you don't actually end up seeing. But the reviewers in iTunes tend to be very polarized. They kind of love it or hate it. So if you look at the reviews of most applications, it's 5 stars or 1 star. It's disproportionately distributed that way. Not always, but in the cases that I've seen. And it's interesting to see you can't really fight that. Somebody basically says that, oh, I tried your application, fail, and then it's the extent of their review. And so what are you going to do with that? So you're going to end up settling down. I think we're at between 3 and 3.5 stars or so. And even though we have so many users who love the application, who use it, the reviews are extremely positive. There's enough people out there who say that, oh, I thought it will make toast, and it doesn't fail, and 1 star. So you have to live with that. The number of reviews is also important, because that's really at this screen, that's the only gauge of how popular your application is. If you have 300 reviews, then it seems that there's a little bit more going on with the application than somebody who has 5 probably just joined. And the other one is price, and we'll talk about price more. This kind of final portion of the talk will be all about what we think, how we approach the pricing. Now, your ranking. It's a pretty interesting area, and it's almost a science, how to appreciate it. Basically, what happens is, if you are ranked well, that is directly correlated to your sales and your downloads. There's no surprise there. If you are an application in the top 100, you're doing far better than an application in the top 150,000. And it's important, because that is the main driver. And you do want to sort of reach these kind of new levels where you would go up to a certain popularity, and then you fall down a little bit, but you reach this new plateau. The graph, I'll show a full screen one in a second. The interesting thing to understand about the top 100 and the top grossing and top category ones is that there is a pretty high turnover. Apple does this on purpose. They want people to be exposed to more and more applications rather than just seeing the same ones over and over, Facebook, and so on. So they want it to rotate through. So the popularity isn't necessarily kind of all-time popularity. It is popularity at the time. And I think it basically falls off. So you need to become more and more popular in order to stay up to that level. I don't have any facts to prove that, just from my experience. And so what happens on these graphs and these huge peaks is, Apple putting us on new and notable, or in the staff picks, or something like that. And then you get this huge peak, and then these are actually weekly distributions, but I'll talk about them in a second. But there is sort of a distinct area that you could focus on, and that's your category. Your category is kind of the default place where people will find you. Everybody goes kind of to the front page, but really, if you go looking for an app, you kind of know what you're looking for. I'm looking for a first-person shooter. I'm looking for a productivity app. I'm looking for a chess game, something like that. And you basically kind of head into the category or the subcategory in there. And that's really where you need to sort of stake your ground. That's where that's where your competition really lives. That's where you got to see, how to actually be more visible within that. Either you're a free application, so you're sort of on one column, or you're a paid application. It's nice that they're separate because then they don't compete with one another. And if you are well positioned and the category ratings are not as high turnover, you actually kind of end up sitting in a certain spot. And so that is really what you got to focus on. You need to, if you're making a decision about your product, what should you do next? Now that you got some time, try to improve your category rating. That is sort of a concrete piece of advice that I can give anybody. But not only category, actually regions are surprisingly important as well. I'll talk about that in a bit too, but we are surprisingly popular in Japan. We don't quite know why. For the most part, our application hasn't really even worked in Japanese. We only now started to figure out that, when you search for 3 katakana letters together, then, there are rules how you should actually be searching them in the database. It's not just in the English language where those 3 letters are smashed together. Japanese language and generally Asian languages are far more complex, and the searching rules there are non-trivial as well. So we pride ourselves on the ability to find those memories that you need. But if your memory is in Japanese, for the most part, we actually had a really hard time finding it. We've done a lot of work to improve that, particularly because we noticed that we were really popular in Japan. And we were popular in Japan, we were popular in Australia, we were popular in South Africa or something like that. And so you would try to understand, what's going on in these countries. Why is it that for some reason there's a higher uptake in those countries than there are in others? And if you figure that out, then work with that, improve that, nurture that. That's something that, if you're not popular in Zimbabwe, then you probably don't need to put too much effort into supporting that language. But so the regions is kind of its own section, and a lot of people overlook that. And search terms. I don't want to get into the whole SEO. I generally hate SEO, but there's a lot of searching going on App Store. So you want to make sure that when people are searching for what your application generally does, that you will at least come up in the results. And a lot of people overlook that as well. They end up being too creative with their descriptions and forget to mention the really basic words about what their application actually does. So that's on the rating part. So the graphs themselves. So here you can see. So these are weekly. Each one of these is a number of downloads during that week. So we are at what is this now? 35,000 downloads a week or something like that. So pretty happy with that. But you can kind of see that something happens and it kind of goes down, and then something happens again and it goes down, and then Apple promotes you, and it's really, really great for 2 weeks, and then it starts falling down, because you realize that the way those promotions work is that for the first week you're on the first screen, and the second week you're on the second screen. You get to scroll through those front page promotions, and so that's basically the difference between the graphs. But what happens is, after those promotions, you want to reach this new plateau. You want to see if that promotion really helped build this non-viral, true organic user base, because those are the people that are using it. Those are the people who are spreading your word. And so I think that's what's roughly happening to us. Every time there's kind of a burst, we reach a little bit higher level. And so right now we've settled down at this 35,000 level. So it's good, but we hope to obviously keep increasing that as well. But and the interesting graph is daily upgrades. Oh, by the way, these graphs I get out of AppFigures. AppFigures is a service which takes the iTunes reports, turns them into really nice graphs. I recommend it to everyone. I don't know the people. I'm not promoting them. I don't get paid for them, but I just love it. It's everything I know about the App Store basically comes off the graphs that we get from that. So the upgrades, what you see here is every time we make a new release. So we make a new release, and this is October 2009, and basically 100 and let's say 20, 30,000 people. And are these weekly, or maybe these are? I think these are daily. 130,000 people that day upgraded, and they all slammed the server and they all did something, And then that starts falling off. But the integral of this curve is sort of your active user base. The people who do have you installed on their phone today. They might not necessarily use you, but they didn't delete you. So, that's something. And then you can see the actual downloads are basically minuscule compared to that. And the important thing with this graph, if you are tracking, your upgrades, is that the integral of every one of these curves needs to keep increasing. The area underneath the curve needs to keep increasing, because that's how you can actually tell how many users out there who have you on there. So this over here rounded out to 350,000 or something like that. So that's and that was that's released sometime in January. So those are the people that on the iPhone uses that we feel that. So back to the international thing. So like I said, we found out we're big in Japan. Have only a vague understanding of why, and it's just guesses for the most part. But the way we found it out is because we're tracking usage. We could see the downloads coming from Japan. We could see the users creating those from Japan. We can see complaints from people saying that the search doesn't work and the input doesn't work correctly, and so on. But the other way to see it is revenue. You can see in the reports where you're making your money, because you obviously are reporting on that in some detail. And so we saw that not only were we popular in Japan, we were actually proportionally per user making more money in Japan as well. So the case of us supporting Japanese, 2 months before this, it was inconceivable. For us to basically start working on, Japanese localization for like a tiny company somewhere in Silicon Valley. But when we saw this, we sort of thought twice about it, and well, more than twice. And now we've been sort of traveling back and forth and trying to figure out our plans there and lining up partnerships. And we've been building it up really quite well. We're really happy with our Japanese traffic. But so you will find where your application is more popular once you release it. Use that to make the decision to localize. Localization is a big pain. Every time you localize your application into a different language, that's just that many more complications. Because maybe you got something wrong. Maybe you want to add a new button, and now you need to wait until the translators get all the words in there. So just saying that I'm going to support every language, well, that's impossible. It's just not going to happen. But saying you're going to support 20, that is 20 times the amount of work that you were doing. So if you find out that you're popular in the US and Japan, just localize it to Japanese. If you find that start seeing traction in another country, localize it to that country. Maybe localize your listing in iTunes, but not the application. See if that helps. Because really, the investment into going international is very significant, but the reward is also very significant if you do it right. So yeah, localize wisely and update your listings. Be sure that if you maintain an explanation of your service in Spanish, be sure that it's up to date, because that's a service that those people are going to see, but you're not necessarily going to see it, right? And you're going to kind of forget about it. And after some time, you're going to add new features, but your Spanish listing isn't going to reflect that. So it's an important and often overlooked part. So now, getting to the actual meat of what I wanted to talk about. So we are, Evernote is almost like a poster child for the freemium model. So the freemium is when everything that you do is free, but then you have this premium level. It's not the same as trial and paid. A lot of people kind of assume that, you basically free is like a trial and paid is paid. It's not true. Evernote's free version is free forever. You can use it. All of our applications are free. Everything is free. You just use it for free for as long as you want. The idea for us here isn't to make money right away. We are more of a long-term thinking company. We want to be a service for life. We really, serious. We want to be something 30 years from now. You remember you saw something really interesting when you were in college, and you should be able to find it. God, how much would I give right now to have all of my college notes? It's just think about that. So make a decision to yourself. Why are you making an app? Are you making it to make money? So if the answer is no, then you're not. Then you can move on. But you're probably doing it for a reason. So maybe you're not necessarily looking to make a lot of money, but maybe you want to make a popular application which you then could sell or something like that. But there are plenty of reasons not to make money, to write an application completely for free. One of the great reasons is getting a job. Getting a job as a developer is much, much easier if you can point to a popular application on the App Store and say, I did that one. That's your interview. That's the extent of it. Somebody comes in who says, I wrote Tweety. we're done. We're not interviewing the guy anymore. So, but maybe that's not your goal. Maybe you do actually want to make some money. You want to make a living from making an application in the App Store. It's a completely feasible goal. So then that's fine. And so then you have to make a decision if you want to make money now or later. Like I said, we made a decision to make money later. We got decent investment. We're sort of a respectable company now. We're not rushing to squeeze every penny from every user we have. We want people to use it. We want people to really like the application, to live in it, and then sometime down the line, they'll pay us the $5 a month in order to get some extra bells and whistles. But maybe that's not your case. Maybe you want to make money now because you got to pay the bills. In which case, you should probably charge maybe 99 cents if you feel that's going to be enough. Maybe more if you feel that your application is worth it. But if you decide to make money later, then there are, well, in both cases, there are ways for you to do it by releasing an application for free. First of all, the benefits of releasing an application for free is that a free app gets roughly, I don't have the official figures, but roughly 20 times the downloads of a similar app for 99 cents. And that's significant. 20 times the downloads. Those are users. Those are people who are telling their friends. Maybe you want to make it free at first and then start charging later. Maybe you want to charge in the application. There's a number of things you can do there. But releasing an app for free definitely gives you more initial users. There is quite a bit of competition in both free and paid sections. But so you kind of pick your battles where you want to fight them. A lot of people sort of say advertisement is their answer. I would not advise that. For sort of early developers. Advertisement, I think, is an option for people who have millions of users. Because advertisement, the cost per click are so tiny, and especially on the mobile, you just don't quite get people clicking on the ads and making any money from it. So unless you have a lot of users, I think advertisement will probably not make you a significant amount of money or a noticeable amount of money for that sake. But Apple did release in-app purchase, which I think is brilliant, and that is a great way to go. If you make a game, make some levels for free, sell some levels in the application, that's a good way for people to actually try it out, see if they like it, then actually pay you money. So it's a little bit more of a deferred method, but you're still basically bringing in some money from the company for your work. Or maybe something else. And really the something else is probably where it's at for the most part. I think we, for the most part, fall into the something else. We came up with a model which is not typical for applications. So, try to be creative and really do consider that a popular application, even if you've made zero money from it, to a student or to somebody who's starting out as developing is very, very valuable. Both in terms of interviews and getting a job, both in terms of experience and actually moving forward and developing an application and making some money. So there's definitely value in doing something completely for free. So how do we actually survive as a company who makes free applications? And like I said, all of our apps are free. We're pretty much upfront. We don't charge for anything. Our basic service is free. Most of our users get the free apps, get the basic service. They use it for free. And they like using it for free. And they use it a lot for free, which taxes us. We are providing the service. We've developed these apps. We're maintaining them. There are, racks and racks of servers that we have. 2.5 million users require a lot of servers. You'll be surprised. And they use it for a long time. And we want them to. We want them to use it for free and for a long time. Because we feel that we are doing something useful. We're doing something really good, really useful for people, and they should really try it. And when they try it and when they use it, the statistics that we have is that somebody who creates 4 notes, if you just created 4 notes, the chances of that user becoming, leaving the service is really small. It's like less than 10%. We retain almost 90% of the active users, the people who actually use the service. There's always this initial, somebody installs the app, starts it, and then just leaves. There's somebody who starts the app, pokes around a little bit, doesn't get it, and leaves. But if you started it, you poked around, you made a few notes, maybe you got it installed on your desktop, you synchronized back and forth, you saw that working, we're pretty much done. We got this user. This user is going to be an active user within the service. And the way our premium model is structured is that we are only putting features into the paying premium model which are necessary to people who really use it. Because if you really use it, you don't mind paying, it's $5 a month. You really don't mind paying $5 a month if you really use something. You wouldn't do it up front because you're not quite sure about this. $5 a month, that's a couple of cups of coffee, it could be significant. But if you actually use it, then it seems minuscule. What's $5 a month? And you can do it right in the application, one button, you just enter your password and you're done. And the conversion ratio for us is surprisingly good. What happens is the longer somebody uses us, the more of those people convert. So if somebody uses us for a month, only about 0.5% or maybe even less of those people paying customers by the end of that month. But by the end of 6 months, it's 2% or so. By the end of a year, it's almost 4%. And so on. So we've been around about 2 years, and I think in some of the groups that we were tracking, we're hitting close to 8% of the all registered users who started using us 2 years ago. 8% of those people are paying customers today. Now, those people generate quite a bit of revenue for us, even though there only seems to be 8%. But what also is interesting is that the costs associated with us are only associated with active users. So if you just registered and never used it, you don't cost us anything. You're an entry in the database. You cost a millionth of a penny for whatever the database entry for your username is. But so only the costs are only active users. So as the kind of the free users who don't use it fall off, the percentage our costs fall off as well, right? So we're only paying for the active users, and if 8% of the total group are paying customers, it's something like 14 or 20% of the active users. And suddenly, this group of people who went from a bunch of freeloaders, in essence, right? Well, I don't want to say that, I love our users. But the people who use us for free, they never pay a penny. Then a year later, suddenly, that's a really valuable group. Because, our costs have shrank, our profits grew there, and that's the model. That's really what we do. Every month is basically another group. Our CEO calls them cohorts. I stay away from that word myself. But each one of these monthly groups is sort of, every month becomes more and more valuable and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. So that's kind of the key, at least as far as I understand, in what they call freemium as a model. So basically, the picture here is actually somebody who sent us 2 bottles of wine because they really liked the service, and they were using it for free, and they felt bad about it. So, if you don't want to buy the premium subscription, we accept wine or sake or soju or anything else. But that's more or less the gist of what I actually wanted to convey. Kind of understand that, it is a meritocracy. The best app does win, contrary to the popular belief that, a lot of people will tell you that, you have to put your money into marketing, you have to put your money into, something else. Really, if you have a choice, you have empty cycles, put them into your product. Make your product better, especially for sort of a one-man shop or a two-man shop or so. Make the product, make the application better, because that is really the best thing you can possibly do to yourself. But then, try to promote it, try to engage it, try to integrate, integrate with us. Maybe we can help you. And, consider making your application for free. You'll be surprised how well you can do if you make your application for free. So that's more or less my talk. If anybody has any questions, I was wary of putting my email. If this is going to go out, it would be really popular. But I do have this Twitter account, and so feel free to hit me up on that. Well, thank you.
For more, please visit us at stanford.edu.